A revised Mamaroneck Schools budget will be up for vote.
Day laborers in Mamaroneck get a new hiring site.
Update on the torso found in Mamaroneck Harbor.
Roads under repair. Where to beware.
The farmers market returns.
And discussions with a new generation filmmaker. Those stories and more coming up on this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. Hello and welcome to this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. Our top story. With the stunning May 15th defeat of the Mamaroneck Schools budget, a new and revised and lower budget will be put to community vote on June 19th. Nearly $1.5 million was shaved off the original budget, and probably the biggest change was the elimination of the superintendent's controversial administrative restructuring plan. School Board Vice President Amy Levere came in to discuss the budget, the revisions, and the contingency plan.
Well, we found we had some support from those who use the school system, but it was not quite as extensive as it had been in the past. I think we've heard that there were some people who were not comfortable with the budget, could not bring themselves actually to vote against it. So there were more parents than usual that chose to stay home and not vote. There were also, I believe, more parents than usual that voted against the budget. In addition, as always, there are some people who don't use the school system who still vote for the budget, either because they feel that their kids got a wonderful education here and they understand the value of it to the community, as well as people whose kids are not yet using the school system but have moved here for the schools.
And some of them don't even know about voting for a budget.
Right. Actually, we had a table at the Harbor Fair on Sunday, and I sat there for about 3 hours and was actually very gratified when a lot of people with strollers and young babies stopped by to learn about the school system and the budget. A number of them had recently moved to the community, so we encouraged them to register so they can vote too.
So what did you learn from the different constituencies that made you put up a budget that's a revised budget, a lower budget, as opposed to the same budget?
Well, we learned two major things. There were lots of different complaints we heard, but the two that we heard most frequently were, one, discontent with the administrative restructuring plan that had been proposed. Some of it, I think, was from not understanding it. I don't think we did a very good job of explaining it to the community. Some of it was, I think, because the teachers in general had not supported it, and some people figured the teachers knew better, and so they were doing what the teachers said. The other biggest thing we heard was about the taxes, both in terms of our tax rate increase and as well as the general tax bill, even though our percentage increase was actually lower than it had been the 5 years before that. Okay. And so in this new budget, we tried to be responsive to both of those complaints that we heard.
Okay. Did people came out and said it's just too much money?
Absolutely.
Did anyone say, why are we paying for specific items? Were there people who said, I don't want to pay for this?
Not so much, other than, of course, the administrative layer. I think people just hear the word administrator and they have a negative reaction without really understanding, and we didn't do a good job, I don't blame them, what was involved in these who are not your typical administrators.
And so that is the biggest ticket item that has come out of this new revised budget.
Actually, about $514,000 of reductions in the budget.
Okay. But
which is about a third of the entire reduction.
Right, I was going to get to that,
okay.
It's about $1.5 million that they've cut it.
Right.
What kinds of things are being cut?
Well, there was that. There's also a cut in the high school security allocation.
Which was also controversial.
There was a portion of it that was controversial, which was for a school resource officer, which actually had been taken out before the first vote, but that wasn't widely known. In addition, so there was money in the budget that we were then going to use for consultants. Some of that is coming out. We also had proposed 2 additional greeters at the high school, but have decided that without really studying the entire high school, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So now the high school security line is down to $10,000. Another big item really has to do with staffing, and it's not a reduction of teachers we already have. It's because the budget is prepared starting in October. So you have to use your best guess based on demographic studies as to what enrollment will be for the next year. Because we re-looked at it obviously in May, we realized that we needed 4 fewer elementary school teachers than we thought. So that comes to about $320,000.
But that's not going to affect anyone's education because you would have been pulling that anyway.
Right. It will not affect class size at all because they're just teachers who are not needed because the enrollment isn't there. In addition, there was the same sort of situation at the high school with basically pieces of teachers, if you will. They were 0.2 or 0.4. And again, because the enrollment was not what we had originally anticipated, we were able to not provide for those additional pieces of teachers. So those are probably the biggest items.
Okay. Do you think that the educational experience in the district will be substantially different under this revised budget?
No, it won't. We tried really, really hard to make sure we could provide basically the same quality education because that's obviously our first obligation.
Now, if the budget does not pass on June 19th, which is the state mandatory revote day,
correct.
As I understand it, there's a mandatory contingency budget that goes into effect, which has a cap on the increase.
Under that situation, an additional $2.66 million would have to be cut from the already revised budget, which means about a total of over $4 million from the initially proposed budget. Those cuts are made by the board with the advice of the superintendent. The community does not have input into it. And obviously, when you have to cut that much from a budget, they'll be really deep. The educational experience will be changed for the worse, we believe.
What kinds of things will be cut?
We could cut, for example, staffing. We could increase class size across the district or in any particular grade level or some combination of it. We could easily also cut all of the extras that make this community special. For example, we could cut athletics, we could cut extracurriculars, we could cut field trips, we could cut performing arts, all sorts of other things that are not mandatory. We are restricted in areas that we can cut because there are certain expenses that we must incur.
And I assume that there are some state mandated guidelines, like a class size cannot go above something by state.
Actually, I don't believe there are.
Is that right?
But when the superintendent was describing to us the cuts in staff, he said, for example, if we increase class size by 3 across the district, that would be the largest class size in elementary school would be up to 28, and in the lower grades it would be lower than that. So it's not up to 40 or some other number like that.
Can you, and I don't know if you have these numbers off the top of your head, but can you tell us what the tax effect on residents would be from the original budget, the revised budget, or a contingency budget?
I actually don't have the numbers off the top of my head for the original budget, but I can tell you that the difference between a contingency budget, because you must understand in a contingency budget, taxes still go up. It is not zero. In fact, they'll go up over 2%. The difference in the tax rate for an individual whose house is assessed at $20,000, which is the average house in this community.
Which isn't really tied to the actual current value.
Absolutely not. I have no idea how the assessed value is figured. But in any event, that would be 94 cents a day between the revised budget tax and a contingency budget tax.
What does that come to annually?
About that's
about $365.
$300.
Right.
For the year.
Per house.
For $20,000 house. As the value of your house goes up, the dollars go up. As it goes down, it goes down.
Okay. What did you hear from the constituency that does not use the schools? Were there specific things or was it just a general, too much money, I'm tired of paying?
It was much more of that. I mean, some of them had heard about the administrative restructuring and didn't understand it, and so there was concern about that. But by and large, we heard from that, we can't afford to live here anymore. This is where we've lived. Please don't tax us out of this community.
With this budget, unlike the original budget, it is supported by the Mamaroneck Teachers Association, which will be sending out information and an urge to vote yes, along with the school's PTAs.
Police in the village of Mamaroneck are no closer to identifying the woman whose torso was found inside a suitcase on Harbor Island Beach in March, even after a segment on America's Most Wanted profiled the mystery. Lieutenant James Gaffney told the Journal News that a couple of calls came in after the Unknown Butcher of Mamaroneck segment aired late last month. The female torso was found on March 3rd on Mamaroneck's Harbor Island in a black suitcase. A small tattoo of 2 cherries on the woman's right breast is the only identifying mark. Police believe the victim, an Hispanic or light-skinned black woman, 5'10" to 6'1", weighing about 180 to 200 pounds, was killed in late February. The America's Most Wanted story showed the suitcase and clothing found inside. 2 other body parts found since March on the south shore of Long Island are from the same woman, say police. The killer didn't want her identified, Lieutenant Gaffney told me this afternoon. But she's someone's neighbor, he says, a woman you might have seen going to work each day. Then suddenly, she's gone. Gaffney says the police are continuing their investigation. The story, by the way, is still posted on America's Most Wanted website, along with photos. If you know anything that might help identify the woman, please call the village police. Their number, 777-1122. You do not have to give your name.
Local day laborers have a new hiring and gathering site, the Straight Gate Church on Madison Street in the village of Mamaroneck. According to Wayne Powell, the bishop of Straight Gate, the primarily African-American congregation was proud to reach out to the immigrants as part of the church's ongoing mission of promoting equal opportunity and social harmony. John Gitlitz, president of the Hispanic Resource Center, which reached an agreement with Straight Gate, said, and I quote, "The new day laborer site is a dream come true," unquote, and that the Hispanic Resource Center already has received financial grants to operate this new location. This new site also satisfies one of the village's requirements that any new site be on private, not public property. Mariana Boneo, the Resource Center's executive director, said that the new site is a great opportunity for the community as well as the workers who will no longer be negotiating for work on a busy street. They'll wait in comfortable rooms, protected from bad weather, and be assisted by 2 coordinators. They also will benefit from ESL, that's English as a second language, and other education at the site when employment is slow. The site officially opens June 12th, but it will take time for everyone to get comfortable with how it works.
As reported recently in the Larchmont Gazette, 9 volunteer firefighters in the village are suing the village board and the new fire chief, Rich Hine, over the board's recent decision to hire Hine, a career firefighter, as a paid chief of the department. Historically, the chief has always been a volunteer. The suit claims in part that the Larchmont voters should have decided the matter, that volunteers who have quit over the conflict now leave residents at risk. The village board disagrees, and Chief Hine told me this afternoon that all calls are being answered as before. However, the conflict did affect the Memorial Day parade on May 24th. Few volunteers participated, and the department's antique fire engine did not appear. In voting unanimously to appoint a paid chief, the board cited the need for professional full-time management in a department where there had been discord between career and volunteer firefighters for decades. The village has 15 paid career firemen. Chief Hine told me that 4 volunteers have already quit, and 5 more sent him letters of resignation effective mid-June. But a dozen men said they will stay. 3 more asked to become active again, and he said applications have been received for 3 new volunteers. The department will move forward, says Hine. As for the lawsuit, we'll keep you posted.
Could there be a race in 2007 in town of Mamaroneck politics? Supervisor Valerie O'Keefe was elected in a contested race in 1999, but the Republican has run unopposed for years. Now, town Democrats have selected a slate of candidates, including for town supervisor. Town Councilman Ernie Odierna is running, despite 2 years left on his term. Councilwoman Phyllis Whitner will seek another term. She's served since 1996. And as Paul Winnick recently resigned from the board because he's moving out of the community, David Fishman has taken his seat. Fishman has lived in the town since 1993 with his wife and 3 sons. He is the president of Larchmont Mamaroneck Little League. Supervisor O'Keefe is waiting until the upcoming meeting of town Republicans to announce her plans, and of course, we'll keep you advised.
Traffic is moving along a stretch of Palmer Avenue, although very slowly at times these days, and that's due to street resurfacing. Almost a mile of Palmer Avenue between Devon and Richbell Roads, from the Larchmont to the Mamaroneck Village lines, is being repaved. The project began in late May and should be finished by the end of August. That's according to Westchester Department of Public Works. On-street parking is not allowed in the construction area. B-line bus routes are unchanged, but stops within the construction area may temporarily move up 10 to 20 feet later this summer.
Police investigate some local burglaries. Don Lewis gets the scoop.
Robbery is a crime that has to do with the confrontation of other people by a person or persons. Burglary, on the other hand, is the taking of property from someone's business, home, or other facility. Earlier this month, burglars broke into the Coldwell Banker Realtor just off the Post Road in Larchmont. This week, 2 more burglaries occurred in the village of Larchmont. One at the Houlihan Lawrence Realtors and one at the Cut Above, a pet groomer. Cash and blank checks were the only things taken at the Cut Above. However, large, expensive electronic equipment was taken at both realtors. Police Chief Stephen Rubio told me they have forensic evidence to tie in one or more suspects to the robberies. Police believe that there was more than one burglar at the Houlihan crime scene because of the size and number of items taken. Along with a digital camera and 6 laptop computers, the burglars tore a massive plasma TV from its wall mount. The police have alerted realtors and other business and have contacted other upstate communities such as Ossining that have reported similar burglaries. According to Liz Sauer, one of the realtors, the burglar also took a large amount of items collected to be sent to the troops in Iraq, such as food, massive amounts of toiletries, and batteries. The burglars entered these establishments after hours by breaking windows to access the door locks. According to Judy Smith, the office manager at Houlihan Lawrence, it was the crossing guard who noticed the broken door and reported it to the police.
The 4th Mamaroneck Historic Harbor Street Fair took place on June 3rd. Did you get there, by the way?
I didn't, unfortunately.
Oh, man. If you missed it, you can hear all about it right now because I talked to Jennifer Graziano, one of the organizers. So how did the street fair go this year, Jennifer?
It was amazing. It was a great success. No complaints.
Tell me about the crowd. Who was there?
Well, the crowd was record-breaking, if I do say so myself. But I've been told this by others who are veterans of doing this. Over 30,000 people, probably closer to 35. We had everybody there. We had clowns and a mime, and we had politicians, and we had stilt walkers. It was an amazing, amazing mix. I think the whole village came out at some point.
Terrific. What does something like this do to build community?
An event like this really displays community at its finest. I think all of Mamaroneck just wanted to come out for this. There was such a momentum and an energy building around it.
To celebrate and to help?
Both. I mean, just the volunteers alone. It was such a common question. Jennifer, how can I help? What can I do? Give me a job. And everybody wanted to take part in it because it was about Mamaroneck pride. And these people are proud to call this home. So it was great for volunteers, and for other people who didn't volunteer, they came out to celebrate being part of a great community.
And we've had a tough time recently with the flooding.
Absolutely.
So this must have been a real shot in the arm.
This was a much-needed uplifter for this village. It was a great time to have a party.
Can you tell me about one or two special things that you really liked? I don't know how much did you really get to enjoy the day, or were you?
I have to say no. I wasn't exactly as mobile as I should have been. I walked a lot of it, so it was hard for me to see everything. I wanted to see everything.
Sure.
But I did get to every venue a couple of times. The music was amazing. The entertainers, we had Rose Arvonio and Judy Rosner. They did the entertainment schedule. And it was wonderful how each performance kind of flowed into the next. So
and who was the young girl, the singer?
Carly, Son and Claire. Oh, she was amazing. It stole the show. I mean, she's probably no more than 8 years old. I hope I got that right. But what a dynamic voice. Unbelievable. She really got the day going.
And a color guard was there too?
We had the Marines, the Army, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. They marched up for opening ceremonies. It was a great sight. The national anthem was sung, and it was a wonderful sight.
Terrific. I'm sure you have lots of people you want to thank.
Oh, there's so many, but it's such a short amount of time. But certainly to everybody in the village at large, a general thank you. Our mayor and our board of trustees, of course. Leonard Verastro, our village manager, really special guy. Tony Accavelli, Department of Public Works, and his men. Day wouldn't have happened without them. And of course our police department, led by Lieutenant Leahy that day, and they were phenomenal. Fire department, EMS, everybody.
And you must have had some inspiration and assistance along the way from the two veterans who did two of these street fairs.
Yes, Sunny and Carlin. They are amazing. They're such energetic women, and they're a tough act to follow.
Now, is it true that you volunteered to coordinate next year's event as well?
I don't know if I've committed to anything, but my heart is in it, and there's no escaping it. So if I'm asked, I guess my answer would have to be sure.
Okay, folks, you heard it here.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
A local group looks at helping senior citizens live out their lives in their own homes. Don Lewis has more.
Aging in the community was the topic at a recent local summit meeting. To find ways to help seniors stay in their homes for the later years of their lives, Laura Bolotsky, director of the operations of the Westchester County Department of Senior Programs and Services, looked back at her childhood on Manhattan's Lower East Side, where young and old mingled on the streets and you could walk everywhere, to the grocery store, the doctor, of friends. Bolotsky believes that government, social agencies, and the general public have a special responsibility to help seniors manage where they usually want to be, at home. She says one of the problems is a lack of communication, sharing between and among federal and local agencies. This was particularly apparent in the recent flood and the difficulties of providing assistance. Mariana Bonio of the Hispanic Resource Center, which took over coordination for flood victims, not just the Hispanic community, said she and the local United Way were trying to set up an interagency group to increase the ability of all area agencies to offer coordinated services. There also are communities with aging-in-place services that can provide sample plans, and the town police discussed some of their services directly toward assisting the elderly, specifically warning them of scams related to the recent flood. If this or other local topics interests you, you are welcome to join the summit. They hold meetings the third Tuesday of the month at 7:45 a.m. at the Nautilus Diner. For more information, you can call Mary Lee Berridge at 834-0192, Teddy Baker at 834-2410, or Harold Wolfson at 834-6229. For Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News, I'm Don Lewis.
Local farm-grown produce, fresh breads and baked goods, artisanal cheeses, wine, organic meats and poultry. Sounds like a recipe for a great meal, and it's all available to you at the Larchmont Farmers Market, which reopened June 2nd for its second season. If you missed that date, not to worry, the market will be held every Saturday from now through December 15th, 8:30 in the morning to 2 in the afternoon at the Metro North upper parking lot at Chatsworth and Myrtle in Larchmont. Throughout the summer, there will be special event days, such as August 11th. You can hear Shake, Rattle, and Roll for all ages. It's a great time to meet up with old friends, walk the dogs, stroll with the kids, and come home with food. Oh, and there usually are plenty of samples.
The winner of LMC-TV's just completed Anything Goes contest was an unbelievable film, a version of Romeo and Juliet produced by Michael Lewin. I asked him a few questions. Mike, thanks for stopping by the studio.
Yeah, no problem.
I was blown away by Romeo and Juliet. I mean, it won the best prize at LMC's contest, but as a video teacher of 30 years, I was just blown away by it.
Thank you very much.
So really, congratulations.
Thank you.
I have a ton of questions, but we only have a few minutes. What inspired you?
Well, I would say I got my inspiration from two separate places, one for film and one for Shakespeare, and I think this was the first time they've really, been fused together. I was always interested in film. Bought my first movie camera when I was 11 years old, and that kind of progressed from there. Shakespeare, I started in middle school with Dee O'Brien. I was an actor in the semi-rural Shakespeare company, and as a freshman, I had probably the smallest role in Romeo and Juliet there was, which was Lord Montague. But still, by the end of the play, I knew every single line, and I just fell in love with the story. And so that was really my inspiration. And I thought, it always upset me to see that people didn't appreciate it as much as I did, and that people didn't really understand, and that something might have been lost in the Old English. So I thought putting it on film and bringing it to a younger and fresher setting could really allow students just anybody to understand Romeo and Juliet.
Now, you didn't do this alone, did you?
No, I did not.
You had some help. Who were your helpers?
I had a lot of help. My two people behind the camera were Granell Knox and David Haug. David was the director of photography, and Granell was, I guess, the sound engineer of the film. They both were so dedicated and just an enormous help. I really couldn't have done it without them. They taught me a lot, and they were really always there for me.
And I understand you had a preview at the Mamaroneck Playhouse?
Yeah, the film was screened for the first time at the Mamaroneck Playhouse. It sold out, all 300 seats.
Wow.
It was really great.
Was this a fundraiser?
It actually wasn't. The tickets were free.
Oh, okay.
It was just going there to, showcase what everyone had been working on for a year. Just going back, the other people that helped me so much were my two actors, or my two leads, Rebecca Sobel and Alex Seif, who were Romeo and Juliet. They were fantastic and dedicated and brave to do it.
Now, have they done anything like this before?
Well, they're both Shakespearean actors on stage, but never on film before. And they were really great, and they learned a lot, and I learned, a lot.
Well, tell me something about the difference between the Shakespearean play on a stage and then adapting it for a screen. Just give us one or two examples of the difference.
Well, I think one thing that you gain from film is, you can really be right in the scene with them, and I don't feel like you are ever detached in the film. You can always feel the emotion, whether it's through the music, whether being right in their face and feeling what they're feeling. And I feel like sometimes that's lost a little in theater because you are separated and there is something between you. Other things, there can be more action, more jazz, I guess, that film can bring, that can sometimes keep the audience entertained.
Well, one of the jazz elements I noticed is the music that you chose. And I was a little surprised because it had a lyric to it. And I was always told, well, you don't have the lyric in while your actors are speaking because they'll conflict with each other, but it didn't.
Right.
It worked really well.
Thank you.
So the music was, did you have that in mind all along?
I actually, before I even made the film, I had a lot of songs that I knew I wanted, songs that I thought the lyrics really fit. And, when you're watching the film, you don't need to hear the lyrics, but, I thought that it was important for it to be there. And I think in some ways, sometimes I actually shape the scene based on the music. Music is a really important part of film for me, and I think something I'm very interested in. So it was definitely always on my mind.
You want to get into this business?
Absolutely.
You want to be a filmmaker?
Absolutely.
Steven Spielberg?
Maybe,
Well, I taught Bennett Miller.
Oh.
And Danny Futterman. They were both in my
Wow.
class. So you could follow in their footsteps.
That would be amazing.
When is your movie being screened again?
There actually is no official date as of now, but in the next 2 weeks, I believe it will be screened again at Homix Auditorium, and there will be, signs posted around town and emails going out. So, and anyone is welcome. They just have to contact me.
Good.
So.
Good. Well, thank you so much for stopping by, and good
Thank
luck
you
in the
very
future.
much. Thanks.
If you missed the LMC-TV award show, which this news show hosted, and even if you didn't miss it, this year's event was dedicated to flood victims, and the traditional 50-50 raffle has become a fundraiser to benefit the Town of Mamaroneck Community Services Flood Relief Fund. Tickets are being sold throughout the community up through the time of the drawing, which is during the annual Village of Mamaroneck Firemen's Parade on July 2nd. Tickets are $2 each or 3 for $5. You can buy them at any of the LMC-TV locations, Studio 1 in the high school, Studio 2 in the Emlyn Theater, and the offices at the Mamaroneck Town Center. So try to help your neighbors, and you get to try to win.
Thanks again for watching this edition of Larchmont Mamaroneck Community News. I'm Mike Witch.
And I'm Maura Carlin. We'll see you next time.